Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Many years ago, the SNP introduced free university education. This would be that every pupil who wanted to go to a university to get a degree would have that funding entirely paid for by the government. This did mean, of course, that the government were responsible for levelling out the fees. They said how much these courses would cost, and they provided that amount of money. But now there are calls for reintroduction of university fees because the money that the universities are receiving isn't enough. The SNP cannot afford to pay any more. They haven't got the money. The cost has gone up because of, inflation as much as anything else. And so they are desperate for more cash. But of course the SNP haven't got it. And therefore the level of education is suffering. And so there are now calls to reintroduce fees, to get rid of the free universal university education for all. This was a major tenet of SNP policy, and if this is adopted and fees are reintroduced, it would be rather humiliating that it was done under Yousaf, because he has always aligned himself with his previous mistress, the Queen of Doom herself, Nicola Sturgeon, who always, at every opportunity, was proudly announced how education was free in Scotland. Until now, it seems. Let's have a look at this article and see why the universities are in a little bit of a financial mess and why they are screaming out for money. Here goes. Now, when any sort of major party has a policy reversal like this, it's always embarrassing. But even more so for a totalitarian party like the SNP, party that can never ever admit it's made mistakes. And so this is going to come as a bit of a body blow for them, a bit of a shock that all of a sudden people are going to have to start paying. But, it's what happens. When you're running a country and you're using public money to pay for this universal education, money that could have been better spent elsewhere, because there are many rich people who are taking full advantage of getting, £30,000 worth of education for free, effectively. But you could have means tested it. You could have said anyone who earns more than this or who has more than that kind of thing. Or done a phased costing based on family income or other social concerns. There is no reason to have made it universally free. It was quite mad. And now the price is being paid. And a key policy from the SNP, as I say, is being reversed. So bring back university tuition fees or risk a Scottish brain drain, the SNP are told. Charging the wealthiest students could prevent talent heading south and create spaces for ordinary Scots, says the principal. So the SNP should consider introducing tuition fees back into universities to stem the brain drain of young talent from Scotland, the head of one of the country's top universities has said. Professor Sir Peter Mathiasson, the principal of University of Edinburgh, insisted allowing institutions to charge the wealthiest students would help create more places for ordinary Scots. And he warned that a lack of funding meant talent and money would head south, with young people having to study in England or travel abroad instead, because education isn't cheap. Not just the cost of hiring the actual lecturer or the professor or whoever is taking those particular lessons, but oftentimes these things will involve physical experimentation. It will require the use of materials. It will require field trips. These things all cost, and when you have got a limited budget and you have to spend it on the pupils you got, you can't expand, you can't research, because research costs money as well. And so therefore these universities start lagging in league tables with universities elsewhere that do have the resources, of course. But Yousaf, the Scottish First Minuscule, immediately rejected his plea, insisting there will be no movement at all in relation to free tuition. And so in that one line, he dogmatically refuses to further fund education in Scotland. He says that education in Scotland is going to be fixed on a fixed budget that is worth increasingly less, and that the talent pool will head south, that the research will go south, and that Scottish universities will be left literally to rot on the vine. They will just wither away because they won't be able to expand, to grow, and to fund themselves to do new areas of research and attract the best people, because political dogma. And that is why any young person who is looking to go to further education, go into university, go and get a degree, will look to see which is the best degree on offer. And it may not be a Scottish university. They may be the cheapest one, but they're going to be cheap for a reason. Homegrown students are able to attend Scottish universities for free, with the number of places on offer capped by Holyrood. There is expected to be a shortfall of about 10,000 centrally funded spaces in the coming academic year, with demand far exceeding supply. The lack of places meant last year one law course at the University of Edinburgh was entirely filled up by applicants from deprived backgrounds. As a result, Scots from wealthier families had to go elsewhere, when they could have paid fees, and that would have created extra spaces and helped fund the system. But because of this dogmatic approach by the SNP, that's not allowed. And so the brightest and the best will go elsewhere. Sir Peter said it was time for the SNP to give calm consideration to allowing such students to pay. And writing in the Herald, he said, "We are accused of denying opportunity to more traditional applicants. In a capped system, this is to some extent inevitable. We don't seek to exclude any group. It is not the case that privately educated applicants won't be able to secure a place at Edinburgh. How might things change?" Last year, think tank Reform proposed that Scottish graduates earning more than the average salary could contribute towards their tuition fees, and potentially allowing government funding to be improved and or the number of the cap to be increased. He added, also, wealthy families in Scotland currently pay for their offspring to go to university in England or abroad, but not in Scotland, and therefore talent and money are leaving Scotland. This is changing any of this would be a political decision beyond my control, but it is worthy of calm consideration. But of course the SNP cannot consider this. They cannot be seen to go back on a main sort of policy area, because it would be humiliating for them. So meanwhile, the universities suck, the talent leaves the country, the money leaves the country, and it's just a withering, as I say, it's a withering on the vine of the education system. But we know how damaging the SNP has been to the Scottish education system, literally from primary school all the way through now to postgraduate degrees. It's the entire sort of 18-20 year education cycle has been utterly destroyed by the SNP and their push for the reforms of education, presumably in an attempt to dumb down the population so they can get away with stuff, and nobody has the ability to sort of force them and analyse what they're doing. Yousaf said that he did not agree with the idea of introducing tuition fees, which were completely removed for the domestic students by the SNP in 2008. So why? Ask him why he doesn't want this happening. Ask him why he doesn't want the ability to have more places for underprivileged students. Why he doesn't want more places at university to improve the levels of educational attainment in the country. Why does he want a dim, dumb, stupid country? It's beyond parody, really, isn't it? He said there will be no movement at all from the Scottish Government in relation to free tuition. He says, I have a lot of time for the principal of the University of Edinburgh, but I believe that education, university education in particular, should be based on the ability to learn, not the ability to pay. Then, in that case, let's have free food, because it should be on the ability to eat, not on the ability to pay for the food. I mean, you can't have it both ways, mate. Let's have free everything, because, it shouldn't be based on the ability to pay. The man is a moron. This coming academic year, there will be more than 120,000 centrally funded places, of which roughly 30,000 are expected to be for first-year students. This compares to the 50,000 young Scots who applied for university places in 2022. That means that around 20 to 30,000 people will be heading south of the border or abroad because they cannot get a place in Scotland because the SNP refuses to fund them. And that is one of the problems that this man has. He's dogmatic. He cannot bend to reality. He must stick with the plan, even when the plan is educationally subnormal. But you wouldn't expect anything else from the SNP or from him. Anyway, let's round off and come up. We shouldn't be surprised at this. The SNP are quite happy to ignore evidence that what they're doing is damaging. But it is the dogmatic approach they have. That just introducing, it doesn't even have to be a full fee system, but even a partial phased levelling of fees would increase funding to the universities. It would increase the number of spaces available, especially to people from sort of poorer or less privileged backgrounds. This policy, aimed at sort of helping people, is actively stopping and hobbling people's ability, especially, like I say, from those from the poorer backgrounds. It's hobbling their ability to get a further education. It's hobbling their life choices. Why would the SNP want to deliberately stop people going to university? It's amazing, isn't it? But then you don't expect anything sensible from them. Despite the overwhelming evidence that it was good, they've still got to ignore it because policy. Bunch of morons. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please do hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please, please, please share the video. Mostly leave the like though. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, send Hamza Yousaf some books so he might learn something, and goodbye.